Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for being subscribers of Signal TV and watching us on One News PH. It is doing it again, so I have to apologize. There is nothing wrong with your TV. There is something very wrong with my camera here. Work from home. Yan po ang reality ng work from home. Today is January 25, 2022. It's a Tuesday. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you also to PLDT for their home fiber optic internet service. And let's start the day with our daily starter. Very important reminder. Okay, be careful. Be careful not to do something permanently stupid because you are temporarily angry, stressed, scared, tired, or hungry. For instance, right now, I have a camera that thinks it's in Japan, so I could get scared, I could get stressed, and I could go crazy. Pero wag po, not on air, not on live TV, correct, di ba? Same thing with you. If there's anything that's stressing you out right now, consider it a temporary emotion. Kasi baka po maggalit kayo, ay may masaktan kayo, or you may end up doing something that can be permanently damaging to your life, to your career, or to the life of others. So, do not do something permanently stupid based on a temporary emotion. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And here we go. The headline, Alert Level 2 in NCR, premature, masyado daw maaga, according to the Department of Health Secretary Francisco Duque. And yun na po ay because the three parameters have not been met. The numbers are still high, so it's too early. At the top of the paper, on the header, DOTR reiterates legality of no vax, no ride policy. Paulit-ulit pong inuulit-ulit ng DOTR na legal, legitimate yung kanilang no vax, no ride policy, even though the IBP, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, the public, ano ba tawag noon? PAO. Anyway, the PAO office said it is unconstitutional, etc., etc. Meanwhile, Secretary Duque came up with a statement that will surely create a stir. Secretary Duque has backed the call for the president to veto the vape bill because Congress passed a law allowing the use, sale of vape, electronic smoking instruments, but the community of physicians, pharmacists, etc., medical experts, and now the Secretary of Health said the president should veto that bill. There are now 900 areas nationwide that are under lockdown. And yan po, no, kumbaga, no, bara-barangay na lang. It is no longer national capital region or region 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all bara-barangay na lang. Okay. The tally of Philippine cases, 24,938 new active cases all over the Philippines. Although it is much lower in Metro Manila, the number of deaths, 47. And ayan po, while the Octa Research Group remains hopeful that Omicron wave will end in March or April. We will be speaking to Father Nick Austriaco of the Octa Research Group to find out their thoughts on this. And so we will discuss that later. Teachers, students urged by Secretary Leonor Briones to join the campaign for vaccination po, no? Kasi inumpisahan na ang vaccination for pediatrics or children below 18 years of age, actually below 12 yata. And there you go, at the bottom end you have a picture of Ping Lacson whose statement is leadership by example. There will be presidential one-on-one interviews with Boy Abunda, which will also be featured by the Philippine Star. Meanwhile, that's a photo of a young lady being vaccinated in another drive-through booster, COVID booster at a drive-through vaccination site at the SM City North EDSA Park work. If it will only be used for political criticism, attack, etc. Sad news for yesterday, today, and the week. The former Secretary of Foreign Affairs and public leader, respected gentleman, Roberto Bobby Romulo, the former Secretary of Foreign Affairs, died at 83 years of age yesterday. So nakikiramay po kami sa mga naiwanan ni Secretary Romulo. Thank you for your devoted service to the nation. We pray that you would rest in peace. Okay, those are the stories in the front page of the Philippine Star. It is 8:07. Let's now go to our first interview. Sanay na raw siya sa akin. Kabisado na niya ako kasi ang galing ko raw manggising sa umaga. Let's go to Father Nick Canor, Nick Austriaco, Octa Research Group. And may I add, molecular biologist. Father Nick, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Sito. Thank you for inviting me back to your show.
Okay, I had to emphasize the fact that you are a molecular biologist because it seems that in your last hopeful statement that Omicron may be the blessing in disguise, people, certain opinionated individuals attacked you and or criticized you harshly. And sabi ko lang, bakit? Molecular biologist ba sila? Naintindihan ba nila yung sinasabi ni Father Nick? Now, Father Nick, I don't want to stir up controversy, but you know, what is the picture like now? People are saying Omicron has peaked in Metro Manila. Your associate, Professor Guido David, said maybe March, April.
Well, it certainly has peaked in Metro Manila. It peaked about a week ago with a 7-day average of about 18,000. We yesterday we're down to 4,500. So in a week, it's gone from it's 18,000 to 4,000. So this is a pattern that we have seen around the world, particularly in South Africa and in the United Kingdom. So we're expecting the plunge to continue, and hopefully, you know, by February at some point, depending upon the hospital occupancy, we can consider returning to alert level 2 in the NCR. But it's not at this time. We would have to wait a couple of more weeks till about February, when the numbers hopefully will be down at the point where our hospitals will be decongested. That would allow us some headroom to be more flexible in terms of mobility.
From what I gathered, Father Nick, the hospital occupancy rate is at 46% for healthcare units, and then the rate of infection is, I think, 60% out of 100. Now, what will it take to safely say, okay, game over, we're in the safe?
Well, I mean, part of the complications with the NCR is that patients to our hospitals are not just from the NCR. So we have, you know, we expect patients from Region 3 and Region 4A. So you cannot just simply look at the numbers for the NCR in order to anticipate what will happen for our hospitals in the NCR, which is why I think it's, you know, Secretary Duque is correct. We need to be cautious because our catchment site for our hospitals is a lot wider than the capital itself. And so we have to make sure that the surge in the NCR plus and surrounding regions are also, in a sense, kept an eye on before we, de-escalate the alert levels in the capital. And this really, you know, not only is the surge incredibly quick in terms of going up and going down. We know from all over the world that the confinement period for Omicron is also substantially shorter than Delta. So we expect that the decongestion of the hospitals will be quicker than what happened last time with Delta. So we're just, again, keeping an eye on this, but hopefully by February, we'll be able to start talking about de-escalating the alert levels here in the capital.
Okay, now how confident are the scientists or the experts that this will play out just like South Africa and some other countries where there was a surge and then it shut down and then everything went back to normal? That would be my first. That's a first question on most people's mind. Are you certain, or is there certainty that this will do the same thing as South Africa, or is there a possibility that, hey, teka, Pinoy ito, nasa Pinas ako, iba yun, wag nyo kong igagaya doon, or something like that?
You know, the Filipino people are special, but we're also human beings. And the virus doesn't care if you're Filipino, if you're Thai, or if you're American. Basically, what we expect to happen and what we've seen in the last 3 weeks here in the capital is that the Omicron spread so rapidly that so many of our kababayans were infected. You know, there's an estimate published last week that by the end of March 2022, so about 2 months from now, the half of the entire planet will have been infected with Omicron, which suggests that by the end of March, 50 million Filipinos will have been touched by Omicron, infected by Omicron. This is the modeling work from the University of Washington in Seattle, one of the best modelers in the United States. So with these high numbers, basically the forest fire is running out of wood to burn. All the wood is burning and has burnt in the forest. And so that's why you're seeing this dramatic plunge in numbers. We're just running out of wood. And so we expect that to happen. Biologically, the virus will run out of new patients to infect. And so this dramatic decline, much faster than Delta, should continue.
Can I get it again, Father Nick? Because my wife and I got Omicron. And the question is, because, we're thinking, okay, we're good for 6 weeks. We can go out, we're safe. But is that the right state of mind that we're good for 6 weeks? Can we actually get reinfected after so many weeks?
Well, the very best science suggests that 2 weeks after your Omicron infection, you have antibodies against Omicron and most likely Delta as well. Now, how long these antibodies will last is still not known because the Omicron surge is still overwhelming the world. But I think there's a growing consensus among scientists that after Omicron passes, there will be a lull in the pandemic throughout the world, because you have to imagine 53% of the world is fully vaccinated, and then 50% of the world will be Omicron infected. Now, there's going to be overlap between that, but that tells you that most of the people in the world by the end of March will have significant protection of some sort against COVID-19. Part of the problem with the pandemic is when it started, no one had protection. But we anticipate, based on this modeling work from Seattle, that in 2 months' time, most of the world will already have been protected, either from vaccinations or natural immunity from getting Omicron, which is why we expect that there will be substantial quieting down of the pandemic until that immunity wanes, and we don't know how long that will take.
Okay, now in terms of variants, because just a few days ago, some people started talking about an Omicron variant or the stealth Omicron, while you, on the other hand, were talking about the fact that Omicron may, in a way, have made it difficult for mutations to happen. Could you please explain that, Father Nick?
So, first of all, the BA.2 variant that people are talking about, there were 426 cases in the United Kingdom since it was first observed on December 6th. 426 cases. Here in the Philippines, just to give you a contrast, in 2 weeks in the NCR, we had 200,000 cases plus. So you can see that the relative transmission of these two, yes, the BA.2 might be spreading, but it's not going to overwhelm in the way Omicron has. So I'm going to point out two things. There will be new variants of concern, but the molecular data suggests that none of these new variants will be able to outcompete Omicron in a way that makes it more severe. So that's really important. There will be new variants like this BA.2, there'll be BA.3, BA.4. But you see, it's not that there are new variants. The new variants must be stronger than Omicron in order to trigger a surge. One of the reasons why Omicron triggered this surge is it's stronger than Delta. And the data from the University of Michigan and MIT, they looked at the virus, they looked at the shape of the virus, and they said, with Omicron, it's very hard to change the shape of the virus in a way that makes the virus more transmissible. That's what the molecular data says. And this is the point of contention between me and the doctors, because the doctors imagine the infectious pathogen, and they're correct. If you have a random pathogen, the pathogen could go left or right. It could become milder or more severe. But we have molecular data. People actually went and looked at the virus, looked at Omicron and said, Omicron, can you become worse? And if you become worse, what would you look like? And they said, if you become worse, you actually get broken. So this is why the data suggests, coming from that work, it's called mutational landscape analysis. We look at where the virus could go to become worse. It's like planning a war. You look out at the landscape and you see where will it go? Where will the enemy go? Can the enemy go there? Can it go here? And you can, based on molecular work and the molecular shape, you can say, it cannot go there anymore. It cannot go there anymore. And if it stays here, it's not going to be more severe. And that's the kind of work that I was referring to. In fact, I was thinking about that for the last 3 weeks, but I realized when I got criticized that many of my colleagues are not familiar with that research. So I brought it up very explicitly the other day.
Well, I appreciate what you were saying, because as you mentioned, and I hope I understood your explanation, with Omicron, what happened was it was first found in South Africa, and it was determined to have originated in areas where they had high cases of HIV and tuberculosis. So you have here a opportunistic virus mixing up with sick patients, and then out of nowhere you have Omicron. So, but you're now saying that Omicron has become the perfect virus, that if it tries to mutate any further, it will simply disassemble itself or die, because you're the molecular scientist.
So I'm going to tweak that explanation a little bit. So first of all, yes, given its high number of mutations, we believe that it evolved in the body of an immunocompromised patient. So whether that patient had HIV, tuberculosis, cancer, something, we believe that it was able to stay in that patient's body, and that patient had been vaccinated. And so what happened is the virus was learning how to fight the vaccines. Learning it was evolving in that patient over a long period of time. So what happens now is that, let's say, Sito, you got Omicron. You got Omicron, your wife got Omicron. Thanks be to God, it was mild. So right now you have antibodies against Omicron. And I'm assuming you were also vaccinated. So you also have antibodies against Wuhan, right? So you have antibodies against the Wuhan variant and the Omicron variant. So now we want a new variant that is worse than Omicron. So what it has to do is it has to change its shape so that your antibodies will not recognize it. But it's very difficult, you see, because Omicron is so different from Wuhan that there is nothing in between that is distinctive, that if you change from Omicron, you will become Wuhan. If you change Wuhan, you'll become Omicron. So your body can recognize both now.
Mhm.
And if it tries to change into something new, neither Omicron, neither Wuhan, what will happen is it will break. The
Mhm.
spike protein will not be able to enter cells. So the virus will simply cease to function. This is why the molecular biologists who are looking at this are saying that it could happen. Okay, one of the things we know about biology is that enormous evolutionary pressure and the virus could do something bizarre. But from what we understand about the virus and about how the virus works, it has become increasingly difficult for that virus to become something new that is different from Omicron, that is different from Wuhan. And this is incredibly hopeful for transitioning from pandemic to endemic.
Okay, is this a frustrating experience for you? Or, being a scientist, do you go to a laboratory or go to a conference excited to learn more about the opponent and how you can beat him?
You mean the virus itself?
Yeah.
I mean, I am a scientist, but I'm also a priest. So inherently optimistic, I think. I tell people, I know I'm going to rise from the dead. And when you know that, how you view this virus, I have been thinking about this virus and reading about this virus and praying about this virus for 22 months.
Mhm.
And my lab has been working on a vaccine on this virus for the last year. So yes, it has become inherently part of my life, but I'm a scientist. This is what we do. It's a formidable opponent. We have never seen it before, but hopefully it will help us to prepare for the next one. Right? We always have to be ready for the next one. And I think COVID-19 showed the world that we are not ready. And the Nipah virus is coming up next. There are several other viruses that will probably in our lifetimes make the jump to humans. So we have to be ready for that when that arrives.
Okay, that is the science, the molecular biologist in you talking. Now, let's go to the priest that I've come to know, Father Nick. No one seems to be willing to address this pandemic as the hand of God, so to speak. What is the sentiment among priests regarding the pandemic as a God's way of resetting everyone to normal? Because I have talked to a lot of people and say, Sito, how come no one's talking about the pandemic as perhaps God's punishment or God's will to put us back in our place?
If we look at the plagues in human history, especially plagues in the Bible, they have always been understood as chastisement. And I use that word, that technical word. So chastisement is a father correcting his beloved child, right? So it is punishment, but it is punishment in love, always moving us to greater holiness. And so if this is the pattern for the last thousands of years, it is not unusual or unreasonable for us to consider that this pandemic too, from a theological perspective, can be read that way. It is a way through which our Heavenly Father is correcting us and calling us to greater love, greater faith, and greater hope. We will see if that works.
Okay, going back to us talking about epidemics, the last question I would have, Father Nick, is what do you suggest to people who are looking for cures or how to deal with Omicron? Because I think even in the US, even in Europe, there's a growing frustration, anger, if you would, that authorities just keep talking about vaccination. And some people are already saying, we're already sick with Omicron. Can you please tell us what to do? How are we supposed to take care of ourselves?
So thank you for that question, actually. It will really depend upon your health and your vaccination status. So Omicron clearly is a milder form of Delta than Delta, especially if you're vaccinated and boosted. But I know unvaccinated friends in the United States where Omicron was still devastating, put them into bed for 2 weeks. They could not get up and they could not walk for 2 weeks. I am assuming that that was not your experience, Sito, and your
No.
wife's experience. But I have Omicron was devastating. So whether in terms of response to Omicron individually, it will depend upon your health condition. But as a society, we are in a different place now than 2 years ago. We have, yes, the vaccinations work, but we also have antivirals. We have molnupiravir and Paxlovid. We have monoclonal therapies. All of these have changed the clinical experience. So, I'm hoping that the Omicron wave will stabilize the pandemic for a while, allow us to move to an endemic state. Part of it will be to move from a position of fear because so many people, especially so many of my friends and my family, are still terrified. But Omicron has changed their mind, because for them, they remember Delta. Delta was devastating and we lost loved ones. But Omicron, sipon lang for so many. And so hopefully it will be a mindset change that will allow us to go from fear to responsibility, that will allow us to move to a time in our society where it's not the government's responsibility, but each of our responsibilities, along with our doctors and our nurses, to care for COVID-19 when it enters our lives, just like flu. So this is the hope as we move into 2022, that with Omicron, in a sense, a game changer with the new drugs and hopefully with an Omicron-specific vaccine this year, or a pan-coronavirus, even better, a pan-coronavirus vaccine this year, we will be able to return to, you said a normal. Well, it will be a new normal, right? It will be a new normal, but it will be a normal that will allow us to live the lives we had a couple of years ago.
I think, as a friend of mine in church put it, the right normal. Anyway, Father Nick, thank you very much for your time this morning. And I do hope that we carry on these kind of conversations through the year, because you are a source of sanity for many. And please do take care of yourself, because you may be God's anointed, but you are still of the flesh. Take care of yourself, Father
God
Nick.
bless you, Tito.
Okay. That's Father Nick Austriaco of the Octa Research Group, molecular biologist with the University of Santo Tomas, and one of our favorite go-to people. We will go for a quick break, and we will go to a filmmaker, photographer, documentary producer, director. And the reason I'm featuring him today, I actually did not even know that he was related to someone I have worked with and still continue to work with, but anak pala ng kaibigan ko. But I invited him on the program because we all want to make our home movies, documentaries. And right now, with me having problems with this Japanese camera, I want to ask him for tips, and he can teach us how to do videography, etc. Aaron Palabiab comes next after this quick break. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. And as I mentioned earlier, we all, at least if you're part of my generation, we all used to love to make home movies. Kumbaga, meron pa no 16, 8 millimeter video cam, etc. And but life has changed. Now we even have all of these people with cameras on mini helicopters, drones. Para tumatanda talaga si Kuyang, you know. But anyway, our next guest is someone that I only happened to come across on Facebook. But he was so full of energy, and he was so encouraging, saying that, join me. I can teach you how to do simple one-man stand-alone videography or documentary or something. And I just said to the team, guys, we have to get this guy on the show. Not realizing na anak pala siya ng bossing kong si Tatish Palabyab. Okay, so our next guest is a filmmaker, photographer, award-winning director, and landscape, time-lapse, and astrophotographer. He has worked in several projects traveling around the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and Europe. In 2020, his short documentary, Two Bataha Reefs, The Coral Heart of the Philippine Seas, was selected to the 2020 San Pedro International Film Festival. Let's bring in Aaron Palabyab. Aaron, good morning to you, senor.
Good morning, Sir Sito. Thanks for having me.
Okay, the show is yours because I was so convinced, impressed by your video on Facebook. Now, how easy is it? You make it sound so easy to you said if I can show you with a simple set of equipment and a few tricks, you can learn how to do this. I'm going crazy with this Japanese camera in front of me.
Yeah. Well, as you said, no, before, and even I think my advantage in terms of, I guess, what I have to share about filmmaking is that I also grew up before digital cameras. So I still remember what it was like. My first shoots as an apprentice were still actually with film cameras. So I've seen the transition between like kind of the old technology and the new technology with digital cameras. And so these days, you can really see that it's very accessible for anybody at any level to really get into filmmaking, videography. And I think that's a good thing. I think now, ang nangyayari kasi, yung labanan nagiging more na sa creativity, sa personality, and there's a lot to learn for anybody, whether you're an experienced filmmaker from the old school or you're someone coming into it completely from new school and you're using your phone. And what I like to share, and I guess the reason I'm teaching filmmaking with my courses, is that a lot of people have a lot of good that they don't know they have. And a lot of people have a lot of value to share. And I think that the people with a lot of good things to share with, or good messages, good things to teach, I think they should be encouraged to try to pick it up with what they have, whether it's your phone or they already have like a more advanced camera. I think they should try it, especially because to balance out, because there's also a lot of negative things that we see online. A lot of people creating content that's not true, but that's popular. So I think that the people should be empowered to be able to create their own work, to bring something good into the world with their voices. So I guess that's the basic overview of it.
Well, you're right there because personally speaking, I have on occasion said to myself, maybe I should go back to my still photography, yung gumagamit pa ng pelikula, gumagamit pa ng black and white, etc., and do a photography of all the homeless people. And do an exhibition, if only to call attention to the plight of the homeless. And I'm sure there are people naman who want to promote, self-reliance, agriculture, etc., or just craftsmanship. Now, where do you start, Aaron?
I always recommend that everybody start where they are. So a lot of people think kasi na you already need like advanced cameras right away or big lenses. And I think that's the big hurdle for a lot of people starting out. But what I always teach is to start with what you have.
Mm.
Phones these days, they're so advanced already. They're super advanced. So I always recommend that people start with the cameras in their phones because almost everybody has one now. And
Mhm.
to practice there. And what I say, always say is that in 2022, what is it that brings in viewers? What is it that gets eyeballs in terms of a piece of content? And I can tell you it's not how fancy the camera is per se. Because why? Because say when you watch, for example, TV commercials, they're very well crafted. They're shot with millions of pesos. But let's be real, a lot of people kind of skip over these. They're so even though they use like the highest budget equipment available. So obviously it's not a matter of budget. But what I always teach, the first lesson I always teach in my classes is that the first thing that people need to realize is what value am I trying to bring with my video? And it doesn't have to be deep. As you said, like it can be something that's a little deeper. Say you want to document, say, the problem with homelessness, for example. But it can also
Mhm.
just be you're a funny person with a unique personality. It can be that simple. And that's why what I found, for example, on YouTube, which is more of what I really is really more of my specialty. If you have a compelling voice, if you have a unique personality, or even if you have a unique life, it can be as simple as you're a father of three and you have a great sense of humor about the situations in life about being a father. That's already something you can start with. And
Okay,
then,
so
yeah.
find a meaning, a purpose, and content because I've seen fathers who video themselves tying the ponytail of their daughters using a vacuum cleaner and crazy stuff like that. So that makes sense. But okay, now I'm going to enroll in your class. Don't worry. But can you at least give our viewers some tips? Because I mean, can you really, really make a movie or well, not necessarily a movie, a short film using a phone? Kasi parang, ano nga lang mag-selfie lang, hirap na yung marami, di ba? There's so many, I've seen so many selfie photos that are half framed or someone's missing from the frame, etc.
Well, the answer is yes. Of course, if you're talking about a short film or a movie with the traditional cinematic qualities, then of course, with a more basic camera, you have to employ more discipline. So of course, it's as you said, it's not just about pointing the camera at yourself. So
Mm.
some basic tips that I would give everyone to start with. So for example, when you're composing your shot, say as you see us on Zoom now, you want it to be properly framed. So as you see here, so half body or a little less than half body with just a little bit of headroom. You want the eye line to be around at the top third of the frame. That's
Mhm.
very basic. If you're shooting a talking head, then it can be either compose yourself or your subject in the center or one third to the side of the frame. People always talk about the rule of thirds. I think that's a good starting point where you can imagine the frame is divided into thirds.
Three
So
parts.
three parts here, and then compose yourself along those lines. So
Mhm.
that's the very, very basic composition. Of course, you have to be able to monitor yourself.
So are you saying, Aaron, that before you even touch the camera, okay, so you already have your idea of what you want to do, the reason why you want to do it. Now you're going into framing of thirds. Is that what they also, is that part of yung bang blocking part of that? Yung bang, okay, I want the scene to look like this and I want yung bida to be here and yung contra bida to be here. So even before you say action, you already have a mental picture of how the video is going to go?
Sito, it's really good you brought that up because the secret to good filmmaking, especially if you're working with gear that is more basic, is preparation. I think because I think maybe that's a misconception a lot of people have that you can just roll the camera, and then all the magic happens. I think all the best filmmaking, whether you're in a crew or solo, it happens because you're well prepared, as you would know, because you have a show, you have an entire crew, you always go into things, you already have a workflow. So I would recommend that everything starts from preparation. So you prepare your script, you prepare your production design, which is everything that appears in the frame. You prepare things like your blocking, your camera position, and good preparation, I think, is what separates really like the best filmmakers from people who just think they can do it. And again, good preparation is a discipline, not not a skill or a talent per se. So which is why anybody can do it.
Okay, you give classes online. How many sessions were your classes? You mentioned. You have to forgive me. I'm not that good. I don't have such a great memory anymore.
Oh, no worries. So the way my classes are formatted, they're on an online website called skillshare.com. So the way it works is that I have my lessons divided into videos of 5 to 10 minutes, which you can take at your own pace. And the total time is more or less 1 hour. So it's actually like not a big investment of time. You can take it at your own pace, you can take it whenever you want, and then you don't lose access. So there are lots of different styles for online courses. So some
Mm.
people you pay a bigger sum up front, and then you have perpetual access to their online courses. The style with the website I'm on, which is skillshare.com, is you pay a subscription. You can subscribe per month or you can subscribe per year. It's an affordable subscription. But the best part is once you're subscribed, you can access all of the classes on any topic on the
Okay.
entire website.
So you subscribe to Skillshare.com, and then, of course, you don't go to class without your school bag, without your pencil and your pen, di ba? So what equipment does a student of Aaron Palabiab need to have at the minimum?
So I would recommend now, if you still like using your pen and paper, um, you can use that to take the most important notes, but you can also actually put your notes directly on the video so that other viewers can also see your notes. So you have that option. Aside from that, you just need your basic camera. So for beginners, I recommend their phone or an action camera like the GoPro Hero. I recommend investing in an inexpensive microphone if you're doing videos that feature yourself. So an
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive lavalier microphone. If you're a bit more advanced, then I suggest, of course, that you get a decent mirrorless camera and a zoom lens. But that's pretty much it. You could actually just come into it um, to watch it for fun, even if you don't plan to shoot, and then see if what you're interested in later on.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I've always wondered about that. People have all these fancy phones, but they are essentially recorders, aren't they?
Mhm.
Because what about the editing? I see a lot of documentary out there. They claim to have been shot with the phone, but there are splices. There are I don't know what your term is, but you kind of blend into one scene into another, etc. There's a how do you call it, a transition. Sabi ko, imposible namang ginawa sa camera lang yan. Merong mga mixer yung mga, or editing machine.
Yeah, so yes, exactly. So it's good that you bring up editing because editing, I think, is the big technical and mental hurdle for most beginners. So I'm very sympathetic about that. So in terms of editing, in terms of putting together all of the footage, you can still do that on your phone, which a lot of beginners do. Although personally, it's not my preference because the phone screen is small. And in terms of thinking, if you think about it as like a painter's canvas, it's a small canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, beginners can do it. And it's also the most inexpensive way to start editing. But I think if you want to get really serious about video, you should edit on your laptop or desktop computer, preferably even with an external monitor. So, again, so you have a big canvas. So, the industry standard editing software um, for PC, that would be Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. For Mac, it would be Final Cut Pro 10. So you do have to, um, for Final Cut Pro 10, just so people know, that's a one-time payment of about 15,000. So it is an investment. Adobe Premiere Pro is a subscription, so that's about 2,600 per month. It's also an investment. But DaVinci Resolve is actually a professional editing program that's completely free. So the main hurdle would be to learn how to use them, which you can actually, if you already have a Skillshare subscription, you can learn from courses that are on editing, but there's also a lot of free tutorials on YouTube. There are also some free editing programs. I don't have the names right now,
Yeah.
but you can actually easily search them. So I think that I would really recommend, like, if you start getting serious, you can edit on your phone first, but in terms of the real power and the real ability to have a creative overview, I think I know people should learn to edit on their computer.
What is your process of doing a project? Because I know we've talked about it, but your actual process, like is it storyboard first? Is it checking out the locations? Kasi dami na naming nadidinig dyan sa mga videographers na yan. And sabi ko, nako, eto na naman po tayo. Manap nga tayo nung talagang who will tell us the truth. So what is your process when you did Tubataha, the Tubataha Reefs documentary? How did you go from start to finish?
That's a great question, Sito. So talagang in terms of the process and workflow, that's really I think um it's really crucial. Your ability to deliver quality depends on the process. So if we're talking about a professional shoot, say the Tubataha one, for example, ideally you would want to be able to scout the location. So so of course, I mean, from the very, very beginning, of course, as some of us know, it starts with the initial meetings. You will have a producer who will be essentially the project manager of the entire project, will have the idea. Sometimes that's also the director, sometimes the producer hires the director. So the producer, or whoever the project head is, assuming they have secured the funding, will put together the team. And essentially, like, I guess at the bare minimum, the team would be the producer, the director, the cinematographer, whoever the talents will be, and then supporting staff, of course. Maybe the producer will also be the production manager who does the day-to-day management of the shoot, but also there could be a separate person for larger projects. So in the case of the Tubataha documentary, what happened there was we were approached by the client, UNESCO Philippines, backed by then the CICT, which is now DICT, Department of ICT, and they awarded the project to us. They awarded the project to document all of the UNESCO World Heritage sites, starting with the Tubataha Reefs. And so, of course, that will be followed by a series of meetings to plan out the schedule and exactly how it will go, agree on the budget, everything. So in terms of Tubataha, we weren't able to scout the location because it's a very remote location. And it's only open a few months a year, and it's actually quite expensive to go there. So to go to Tubataha on a commercial vessel costs around 100,000 pesos for about a 5-day live aboard. So in our case, we coordinated with to be able to go on a WWF boat with rangers, with park rangers. So that's in terms of the preparation. On our end, so I directed it. So of course I prepared all of the gear to shoot topside, which is above the surface. So we would shoot interviews with all of the resource persons. So of course, all of that is coordinating with all the people on the ground. So again, a lot of filmmaking is actually all of this logistical work. So we coordinated with all the people on the ground to make sure they would be there, they would have what we need, prior accommodations, everything. And then we hired a specialized underwater videographer. In this case, a British man named Tony Exall. His business is I forget the exact name. Is it Philippine Dive Holidays, I think. So from there, in we all meet in Puerto Princesa. Oh, and I already have a basic script. So sometimes so in terms of a documentary, you might wonder, like, how do you write a documentary script when you still have to get all of the interviews? So obviously you don't know exactly what you're gonna get, but you always have to come in with a basic idea of the story you want to tell based on research. So all that research has to have already been done. And then based on that, of course, we prepare some questions for the interviews, and then I guess a basic idea of the story we want to tell. And then from there, we land in Puerto Princesa, we shoot our interviews, we get on the boat, And then basically there we start shooting according to our plan. In this case, since this was a documentary, we didn't do a storyboard. We just did a list of shots that we want to get, like a wish list of shots that we want to get, which of course we don't adhere to strictly because there are a lot of things you only find out on the ground, and our list of questions for the interviewees. So from there, we arrive at Puerto Princesa, we take the boat to Tupadaha, and we do all of the shoots. And then once that was done, that took about 5 days, we come back to Manila. Very important, we back up all of the footage. So one tip I always give is, if especially if you're a professional filmmaker, don't just put your footage on one hard drive. So two is one and two is one and one is none. And I've experienced that already, where my producer na nasa napatid niya yung power cable nung hard drive. And then in that single second, everything was gone forever. Buti lang may backup. Pero kung walang backup, imagine you shot 5 days in a remote location that's only open a few months a year, and then you lose everything. So again, super important. It's not glamorous, but always have at least 2 backups of your files. Especially this was about 500 gigabytes of footage from 4 different cameras, including stills. So yon. From there, since I was the writer, director, and editor of this project, which I don't recommend, but that's just how it turned out, and I wanted to do it myself. I take all of the footage. Then I watch all of the footage. I watch all of the footage, and then I mark the best takes, and then I mark which takes are interview, which takes are beauty shots. So I categorize all of the footage, so that when I come into the edit, it's not just a big unsorted mountain of footage. So that's super important. So for those editing, especially large projects, like organizing your footage is crucial to be able to make it manageable and efficient.
Yeah,
And then
because
after watch,
I remember back in the days, they would say 90% of everything that has been filmed lands on the cutting floor. In today's reality, how many percent of all the video that you take per project and is actually saved?
yes, so in terms of the raw footage, as much as possible, we don't delete anything because this can still have value over time, especially for a project like Tubataha. But what in terms of what comes out in the actual documentary, 10% is a good number because you only leave in the best parts. Especially in a documentary, you just keep rolling because you don't know what's going to happen. So in terms of a dive, it could be like for 90% of the dive, you don't see anything interesting. And at the end of the dive, you have 10 minutes with a huge manta ray. So, you don't stop rolling talaga. Hindi pwede sa professional video ang nagtitipid sa footage. Lalo na ngayon, because you're not shooting on film anymore, memory is relatively cheap. So, in terms of that also, so we keep the footage. I still have the footage today, and it's still benefiting people who want to support Tubataha. But in the actual documentary, 5 to 10% of the actual running time lang yung lumabas dun sa video.
5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but well, we're down to our last few minutes, Aaron. Now,
Yeah.
I can see you in your in those video clips that you are showing the equipment, etc. How much would be a good budget for a novice starter or an enrollee in your video classes?
That's a great question. So I would think if you just want a complete basic setup, you can go anywhere from, say, the low end is 5,000, which means you already have a phone or an action camera, and you're just going to buy lights, maybe a mic, and other supporting gear and software. Software, of course, we have to take that into account. But I think for a complete semi-professional setup, you would want, including software, realistically, you would want to spend about 30,000. But below is very, very possible. But 30,000, I think, can get you a second-hand camera, a good microphone, and editing software, maybe even small lights. That's
Okay,
very doable for that budget. So I don't want to undersell it. So I'd say at 30,000 you can already be a semi-pro.
Mhm. Okay, well, Aaron, we've run out of time, but I'll give you the chance to plug your classes. And most likely, if it's not me, it's going to be my darling wife who is now sitting across me as my technical director, watching this Japanese camera and making sure it behaves. Okay? Ito kasi kung minsan nag-aambisyon ng high definition high frustration din pala itong mga camera to. Anyway, Aaron, please go plug your video classes online.
So hi guys. So if like Sito, you're experiencing high frustration with high definition, so I really highly recommend checking out Skillshare.com. I have two classes there. One is on it's called From Clueless to Content Creator if you want to become a YouTuber. The other is called Solo Filmmaking for Content Creators, which is a little more advanced and in-depth. So you can enroll for Skillshare.com. You can subscribe for 1 month or 1 year, and you can take not just my classes but classes on literally anything you want to learn. So yeah, I really encourage you to check that out and then start creating your own stuff. And Sito, thank you so much for having me. It was a
Okay,
pleasure.
thank you for joining us, Aaron, and thank you. I will probably be watching the Clueless to Fearless kasi ang nangyari sa akin, I started with Fearless, landed in Clueless. Thank you very much, Aaron Palabiab, and we hope that our viewers who have repressed this desire will boldly go where Aaron has gone ahead. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Okay, and at this point of our program, we bring you our weekly blessing, our closing weekly blessing, and it comes from the book of Job, chapter 11, verses 15 to 18. Then, free of fault, you will lift up your face. You will stand firm and without fear. You will surely forget your trouble, recalling it only as waters gone by. Life will be brighter than noonday, and darkness will become like morning. You will be secure because there is hope. You will look about you and take your rest in safety. And that's today's agenda. Keep it here on Signal TV, One News PH. And I pray to God that you will all be safe from COVID and that you will have a great day ahead of you. Thank you. God bless you.